Hey there, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of the Podium Finish Live. I'm your host, Rob Tiongson, an NMPA journalist and editor-in-chief of an award-winning media outlet, fittingly called the Podium Finish. Now, from time to time, unlike the podcast that I do more regularly, this is going to be a special video series that I'll get to do when I do one-on-one interviews or media availabilities, or just because I want to share my opinions in about the world of sports, which of course my primary beats are NASCAR and the WNBA. Now, on Tuesday, September 24th, NASCAR held a Zoom media availability for the NASCAR Xfinity Series playoff drivers competing in the round of 12, which is kicking off this weekend at Kansas Speedway. So today, I got to get some interviews done with Sam Mayer, Sammy Smith, AJ Allmendinger, Shane Van Gisbergen, as well as Riley Herbst and Jesse Love. And each of these drivers had some great perspectives, insights about their efforts, not only going into the playoffs or going into the season, but more into their mindset. Because, of course, drivers are athletes, and like people, they have emotions and particularities that they have to go through. So it's interesting to get to know their mindset, some of the inner thinkings that they go through, the intricacies to make their operations work or tick and succeed on the racetrack. And of course, it all starts before they get to the racetrack with doing availabilities like these, debriefing with their teams at their shops or in the garage area. And whether it's a young driver like Jesse Love, who's a rookie racing for Richard Childers Racing, or an experienced veteran like AJ Allmendinger, who has a pedigree of racing experiences in open wheel and stock cars, it doesn't matter. Everyone's focus is on not only trying to go after the championship, but to start things off on the right foot. So, with the round of 12 for the Xfinity Series featuring tracks like Kansas Speedway, an intermediate racetrack, and a super speedway in Talladega, capped off by the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval, which is going to have a change by NASCAR Turn 1. Nothing is for certain. And a lot of these drivers are pretty much the mood was pretty optimistic, I'd say. And a lot of these drivers had some great insights into how they're preparing for the playoffs. But my focus is more about just the personal side for them, how they're going about things mentally speaking, emotionally speaking, as well as just some of the things that have made them better race car drivers, or in some cases, if you're Shane Van Gisbergen, what advice you tell yourself many years ago living in New Zealand, and all of a sudden you're one of the top drivers in a NASCAR Xfinity series. So we'll hear from these drivers one by one, kind of my snippets of what I got from today's Zoom sessions, and then I'll share my thoughts afterwards. Enjoy. What you did last year, making it to the championship four and getting those wins at the Roval and Homestead, how much are you looking into last year's experiences to go and try to improve upon two positions this year?
Yeah, like we had a really rough playoff run last year in the grand scheme of things. We did a really good job executing when we had to, but we put ourselves in really bad spots to where we had to win. And we're looking to hopefully not kind of be in that same spot this time around. Yeah, we got away with it last year and made it to the Champ 4 and had a shot at it at the end, but we definitely want to do a better job of executing this year. And that starts off with having a good run at Kansas, getting through Talladega, and hopefully doing the same thing we did last year at the Roval.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. There's always gonna be ups and downs in life, and especially racing, right? So, Davin's done a good job with me at managing my emotions and trying to keep me even keel, right? Not get too high, not get too low, especially after a weekend we just had at Bristol where it was pretty dismal. So, he did a good job of keeping me level-headed in the race car, and after the race, keeping me level-headed and focused on Kansas. So, he's done a really good job with myself and my mental for sure to keep me in the right place. And I'm excited for the next 7 races. And I think if we execute to our ability, we'll have a real shot at this thing. So I'm eager to get to Kansas and start racing.
Sammy, you touched upon it earlier about the transition going from Joe Gibbs Racing to Junior Motorsports. So, first of all, what are some of the positives with racing for Junior Motorsports, not only from a driver standpoint, but the resources that you have on campus and at the racetrack?
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of, pros and cons about both. And I think, for the pros of it, I think it's a good team culture. It's a good going into the shop, the atmosphere, obviously having Dale Jr. as your boss and Kelly has your boss has been cool, and I can lean on Dale a lot, and there's just a lot of experience um, with Justin, Sam, Brandon. There's just a lot of experience that we can lean on, even having that fifth car of trying to make everybody better. But yeah, I think it's been tough. You know, I've been at JGR pretty much my whole NASCAR career, I guess you could say, and making that transition wasn't tough. I think it just is. There's a lot of different learning curves about the cars. You know, we've had a lot of issues this year that probably haven't been in our control. It just have been a lot of mechanical failures that I think have put us in this position to be very close on the cut line. But kind of throw that aside, anyways. I think we need to just continue to work on our speed and continue to try to contend for race wins.
For sure. And my last question is, with this kind of being a mini season in one for you, how do you feel about this opening leg having different tracks like Kansas and Intermediate, Talladega Super Speedway, and the Roval? Like from an opportunity standpoint, do you feel like you can kind of erase some of the low parts of the season and be like, hey, you know what? I've got a chance. This is a chance for me to kind of do something special for this team.
Yeah, for sure. I think this round for us is a big opportunity to collect those kind of points, stage points, and obviously Kansas. I really enjoy that racetrack, and then there's Talladega and the Roval, kind of two wild cards, you could say. And I think that is needed for us in the position we're in with not having many playoff points. We just need to try to execute and, um, you know, make it past this first round, and then the next round we're probably going to have to win just in the circumstances, and we know that. But yes, I think we can execute on this first round.
Jesse, I also have two for you as well. First of all, where do you feel like you've grown as a driver, given how quickly you've adapted to Xfinity Series competition and with the resources you have around you at RCR? You touched upon Kyle Busch as a resource, but how has he or someone like Austin Hill helped you out?
Yeah, I feel like Kyle's helped me out a bunch, and I didn't know what to think of how Kyle was going to be with me before I started working with him. Starting to do more of his simulation stuff at the Dill at the tech center, and even before that, there's been times where he's called me to help me out on something. Before I was even Xfinity racing, we went and did that test day at Coda in the WRL series. He was really blunt and honest with me, and there was something I was doing wrong, but I was really fast, and he was like, well, "Where are you missing it?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm really fast." And he was like, "Well, you're 2 tenths off in this corner compared to me last year." So he doesn't just do that though. He After he said that, and I had a confused look on my face, he brought the data over and brought people to show me the data and then explain it to me, and that's kind of been our relationship this whole year. Obviously, Kyle is one of my heroes and somebody that I respect so much. So when it's one of those things where he doesn't have to do that, right? Like he doesn't owe me anything. So when he is coming to me and wanting to help me and want me to be better, it's one of the reasons he's at RCR. Like that's why I feel like I've grown a lot as a driver. Is I feel like I've tried to have no like ego towards anything, right? Know that I feel like I'm good enough to accept my faults and want to get better in those areas. And I've had a lot of people that have helped me fix those, like Austin Hill, Austin Dillon, and Kyle. They've all really helped me a bunch this year. And it's kind of hard for me to go help them because I don't have a lot to offer to Kyle Busch, right? Or to Austin Hill or Austin Dillon. But at the same time, I feel like I always try to lean on them as much as I can. And yeah, I feel like the growth this year has been solid. I feel like I really perfected myself a lot last year racing ARCA, kind of getting that last year, and I'm really glad I did that. I didn't rush and go to a truck car or a truck series ride or even Xfinity series ride part time. Like I'm really happy that I stayed that extra year in ARCA, really set my foundation. So right now I feel like I'm kind of just taking small leaps forward each weekend. And right now, the main thing is that I'm working on is going and having the grit and tenacity that a Cole Custer, or Austin Hill, or Justin Allgaier has, but at the same time, not making mistakes, right? Even we even see that with some of those guys still that have all that speed, kind of have those bad days where you know, everything goes to hell in a handbasket. I feel like I try not to have those days, but still be fast enough to compete for wins. And I've always kind of prided myself on that, taking care of equipment and finishing all the laps. And again, I feel like my progress this year has been slow but really steady, and it's definitely an upwards trajectory. So kind of focusing on that still in the playoffs, but it's kind of like golf. I try not to make swing changes on the golf course. I try to do it beforehand, right? So I feel like as I go in the playoffs, there's going to be things that I'm going to adapt and learn to along the way. But I feel like I've done a lot of learning this year, so I can go and race hard in the playoffs and not make mistakes.
Mean to you to contend for wins and championships at this point in your career, knowing you have your family now at this point with your wife Tara and your son Arrow supporting you through the highs and lows?
Yeah, I can't believe that I'm still here doing this. I mean, I feel so lucky that Matt and Chris believe in me to of what we've achieved over the last 6 years together, and hopefully we can keep achieving. But more importantly, that they believe in me to just say, hey, this is first of all, they asked me what do I want to do, and that was great to have that of them asking me like, do you want to go back to the Cup Series? Do you want to stay in the Xfinity Series? Do you want to cut back? What are the options? And them giving me those options and allowing me to kind of choose what I wanted to do. So, to have Arrow at the racetrack now, especially and watching, seems like just his personality, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger as he gets older. And this weekend was a lot of fun at Bristol because just to see his reactions to the fireworks going off and the crowd. So to be able to share that with him at least for the next couple of years and hopefully spend some time in Victory Lane. Last year at the Roval, he was basically 1 month old and wasn't there. So my goal is to try to win one of these races, especially when he's there. So we can take pictures in Victory Lane, but it's a lot of fun to be able to share that with Tara and Arrow now, and really more importantly, just have the opportunity to do this.
Oh, for sure. And my last question for you is, how do you feel about the way you've contributed to College Racing's growth, knowing that you've kind of been the person who's given input to them to grow and excel and figure out their weak points and their strong points?
Yeah, it's I'm doing my best. I always feel like, Rob, I can do better, right? Like I'm hard on myself. We haven't won this year in the 16 car. I put that on my shoulders. Uh, so there's a lot of time that I don't feel like I'm doing enough, that I'm helping us enough. But I'm doing everything that I can, and it's definitely the effort at the shop day in and day out from all the men and women. I mean, that's why I think I get frustrated sometimes, because I'm like, I see how hard they're working, and I want to bring them more victories. And what Shane's done on the road courses has been phenomenal this year. So um, it's at the end of the day, whenever I do stop, and hopefully it's not for a few more years, it's I leave the race team a lot better than where it started, and that's my ultimate goal. It's cool to have young guys like Christian now signed up, and Daniel and Josh, and hopefully trying to build not just the Xfinity program but the Cup program to where they have a place to go, so we keep these guys in the family, because that's what college racing has always been about, and the way they've treated me is family, and that's what I kind of want to leave to the next group, and even still be a part of that. But if I stop driving full time, leave them the best scenario possible.
Hey, Shane, just wondering if you could talk to your younger self about the fact that you'll be racing in a NASCAR Xfinity Series at places like Daytona, Indy, and Chicago. How do you think he'd react to all of this?
Yeah, yeah, it'd be surprised, but always eyes open, it's been crazy last year, 18 months. My life's done at 180, and I never expected to be racing in NASCAR full time and Cup Series full time next year. It's completely changed since that first call with Justin, and then Chicago, and coming back for the trucks at IRP and Indy Road Course in the Cup Series. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but yeah, like I was happy, or accepted that I'd be a supercar driver my whole life. So yeah, getting this opportunity and knowing I was still young enough to make a proper career out of it here and have a proper crack. It was yeah, it's been awesome. But I don't know, I've always been tried to have a eyes open outlook, tried to always do other stuff. I raced in GTs in Europe a lot and did a lot of endurance racing over here as well. And yeah, like I've always tried to be open about doing other stuff. So yeah, I'd be surprised, but also wouldn't be as well, I guess.
And those are some interesting perspectives that I would say we got from today's NASCAR playoff availabilities via Zoom. And of course, my thanks goes to NASCAR Media and all these drivers for taking their time today to talk about their preparations going to the round of 12 and pretty much their season in a nutshell. So it's always interesting to hear some of the mental aspects of what goes on, or the emotional aspects, of course, like I said from the top, that these are human beings, and this is me just talking to them during their day job. So it's interesting to see just how dynamic these people are and what they get to do for a living. And in the case of AJ Allmendinger, just sharing his perspectives on how his son Arrow and his wife Tara have meant a great deal to him, and just the freedom he gets to have a little bit with college racing to grow that program, to give his insights as an experienced driver with great success in the open wheel series and stock car series. Jesse Love being so open about how Kyle Busch has mentored him and how he feels like he doesn't have much to give to him right now because he's the one that's the young kid. But it wasn't long ago that Kyle Busch was a young kid too, you know? So Jesse Love, of course, I think is a really talented driver with lots of potential. You can see why Richard Childress Racing is so big on having him around on that team. So great insights from him. Also from SVG, it's just really cool to finally get to talk to him after he has made the move to the US to go and race full time in the NASCAR XFINITY series as he gets ready to go cup racing next year, of course, for Trackhouse Racing in the number 88 team. Sammy Smith, you know, racing for Joe Gibbs Racing last year, now moving to Junior Motorsports. Really cool to hear, you know, some of the inner workings he's had to go through, some of the mental aspects, just so sort of the critical analysis he's given about what he feels like he could do better, where things could go better in the round of 12. And Rally Herbst too. I mean, even though he mentioned in that same availability that he's not too confident in his future, he's pretty keen and focused, as I would expect with most of these drivers, about the job at hand, which is to get to the round of 8 and then to the championship 4 at Phoenix Raceway. So, you know, all in all, these were some great insights. Love doing these. Love to hear from these drivers, and hopefully we'll get some one-on-ones with them before the season wraps up. And of course, we'll have them on the podcast later this week. But I hope you enjoyed this special edition of the Podium Finish Live in video format. And if you did, go ahead and click that like button and subscribe to my channel for more content like this in the world of NASCAR. And of course, my other primary beat, which is Women's National Basketball Association, the WNBA, which of course, if you're not aware, the playoffs are happening right now in Game 2. There's many Game 2s happening on Tuesday night and going into Wednesday night, so be sure to check those out. I'll have some opinions on those. And in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all out there.